Well, 2 days into the T20 World Cup, and that's 2 straight days of giant killing that we've seen. After Namibia humbled Sri Lanka, we've now seen Scotland down the West Indies by 42 runs. So don't assume anything just yet in this tournament. Much similar pattern to that Namibia-Sri Lanka game. You saw an associate nation bat first after losing the toss, get to 160, centered around one batter taking responsibility, and then the favoured side in the chase just self-destructing. West Indies were on course to chase 161. They were 53 for 1 towards the end of the power play, and then they lost 6 for 26. Essentially, that's where their game went. Without doing anything extraordinary, Scotland pick up some points and a decent net run rate. My first takeaway, therefore, is going to be watch out West Indies. Not watch out for the West Indies, but Nicholas Pooran said better be careful now from what I've seen in the first 4 games of this tournament. This, with due respect to the Netherlands and the UAE, is the tougher group to predict, given that Zimbabwe had such a convincing win against Ireland later in the day. Ireland themselves are a far more polished side, even though they didn't have the ideal day against Zimbabwe. So West Indies now have to play these 2 teams. If they slip up, they don't bring their A game against Zimbabwe in a couple of days, that could very well be the end for the 2-time champions. So be careful if you are the West Indies. You better bring your A game on, because you did not do that against Scotland. Now, speaking of Zimbabwe and Ireland, quick takeaway from that game. Excellent performance by Zimbabwe. They had their moments where they started with the bat early on. But what a day for Sikandar Raza. And might I point out now that Sunil Narayan does feature in this year's World Cup in some form or the other. Raza, if you remember him like me, used to bowl with a very orthodox, classical sort of off-spin action. He's remodeled that after he's had a tough 12 months or so returning from illness. And after spending some time with Sunil Narayan in the CPL, he's bowling a bit like him. Maybe not every ball. He throws in the old regular off as well, perhaps a double bluff. But he did get a wicket today of George Dockrell bowling with that classical remodeled Sunil Narayan action. So keep an eye out for Sikandar Raza, who's not only Zimbabwe's game saver today, but can always put in a few overs with ball. And if he continues this sort of form, we will see Zimbabwe in the Super 12s. Final takeaway is just from the first 4 games that we've seen in round 1 of this World Cup, perhaps teams need to rethink what they want to do with the toss. We've spent so much time in 2020 cricket in the last 12, 18 months talking about teams fancying themselves, chasing, tosses playing a big part. At the last World Cup in the UAE, we've now seen 3 teams out of 4 win batting first, 3 captains out of 4 choosing to bowl batting first and losing and not coming anywhere near their targets in the chase, as it turns out. The only team that ended up chasing was that Netherlands-UAE game, where UAE still managed to push Netherlands to the final 2 balls in spite of having just 111 to defend. So food for thought for Sri Lanka, for the West Indies and for the other teams in round 1, and possibly even for the Super 12s in the World Cup.